We are going to go ahead and get started with this afternoon's conversation. I'll first start off with introducing myself. My name is Hannah Edlin, and I'm with Kentucky Youth Advocates. I'm our Director of Policy and Strategy, and I'm also joined today with a few of my colleagues from KYA. And we are just so excited to have this conversation, and we are thankful that you have decided to tune in with us this afternoon. For those of you that are following, we are on day 17 of the Kentucky legislative session. Woot woot. I think we're already a quarter of the way through. And we've decided to do something a little bit different this Children's Advocacy Week. We know how busy our legislators are, and it can certainly be a difficult time getting folks together. So we've pre-recorded a conversation that you all will have the opportunity to listen to today, and then also offer your reflections and thoughts. Today, you all will be hearing from Chair of the House Education Committee, Representative James Tipton, and member of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Jimmy Higdon. We've asked them some questions based on what we think that you all would be interested in hearing about. And just as a quick overview for our time together today, we'll start with a viewing of our recorded conversation. We'll transition into a couple reflections, and then we'll have about 10 minutes to answer and talk through any questions you all might have or reflections you might be interested in sharing. And also, if you have any questions or reflections while you're watching, feel free to drop those in the chat, and we can visit those while we're listening and after during reflections. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Mara, to get us started with our viewing party.
Well, hello, I'm Terry Brooks with Kentucky Youth Advocates, and we really appreciate each of you joining us today as part of Children's Advocacy Week. You are very, very fortunate because we have two legislators joining us today, Senator Jimmy Higdon and Representative James Tipton. And to both of you, I deeply, deeply appreciate the long-standing commitment that you all have had to kids. One of the things that I think Senator McConnell talks about a lot, whether it's about Congress or presidential candidates, he talks about show horses and workhorses. And he always likes those workhorses. What I appreciate about both of you so much is you work so hard and so diligently in quiet and detailed and behind the scenes ways, and you produce wonderful movement for Kentucky's kids. So Senator and Representative, I just want you to know, both of you, and I want our viewers to know that, how much I respect and appreciate what you do for kids.
Thank you, Terry, and it's an honor to be on with you today. Thank you for the invitation.
I appreciate your kind words.
And I think both of you guys, I know Representative, you represent Anderson and Spencer, and Senator, you have a broader reach, but you share Spencer with
That's
Representative Tipton, and then you also get into what, LaRue, Marion, Nelson, and maybe Washington County,
correct.
Is that right? Yeah, well, and both of you guys came and, or y'all were both part of the 2015 class, is that correct?
I go back a little further than that. I was part of the 2003 class.
Okay, you are much, well, we were talking.
I was quite excited, and when Representative Tipton came on board.
The senator actually started in the House, but he decided to move on to higher ground.
Well, actually, Senator, we were talking before we started recording. You will not remember this, but you were our legislator at the very first Blueprint for Kentucky's Children Summit, and I remember that you were a little bit of a rookie at that time. And so we appreciate you being here, both of you. So I predate both of you, and I remember when K-12 education was a common ground bipartisan arena that ranked up there by motherhood, apple pie, and the American flag. It's safe to say that today it tends to be a little bit more divisive, but I'm glad to know there are some areas that I think are joining folks together. And I'd like to start with that. And then I want to also give you guys chances to talk about some areas of focus that you might be bringing. I'll like reference numericity for you, Representative, and give you a chance to talk a bit about that. But I know one of the things that I hear from the Senate, the House, and the governor is a recognition that we've got to do something around the recruitment, reward, and retention for our workforce that's in the schoolhouse. So can you talk a little bit about what the General Assembly is thinking when it comes to reinforcing the workforce in the K-12 setting?
Want me to start off?
Go ahead.
I'll start off there. Obviously, that is a huge concern. And one of the concerns is teacher compensation. House Bill 6 was filed today. That is the executive branch budget. I have not had a chance to go over in detail, but I know that the House version of the budget will recommend a 4% increase in SEEK funding in the first year of the biennium and 2% above that in the second year of biennium. It also recommends an increase in transportation funding, taking transportation funding up to 80% in the first year and 90% in the second. One other thing specific to teacher recruitment, there is a language in the budget that would have a stipend for student teaching. That would be a first time. And there's also language in the budget to establish a pilot program for a teacher loan forgiveness program. So those are just a few of the highlights. Again, I need to study this budget in a lot more detail. I've just got a few talking points right now, but I think we understand the need for that. And remember, this is the House budget's just the beginning over here. There'll probably be a substitute in the House, and it'll go over to the Senate, and we'll wind up with a pre-conference committee report later in session to get the final package together.
That's very, very helpful. Senator, you want to reflect on where you think you and your colleagues might be on that issue?
Well, I think there's a great deal of support for teacher raises. We know we need to move ahead on that. As far as the teacher shortage, and that is critical. But we hear from every profession there is. We hear from fire, police, nurse, doctor, manufacturing workers. I mean, it really doesn't matter what industry or profession you look at. There are shortages, and I'll make somebody mad with this, Terry, but there's only one profession that I have not heard of a shortage, and that's attorneys. Anyway, with that said, we have to do a better job at recruiting the best and the brightest to the teaching arena, and so we have to go above and beyond to do that. And as Representative Tipton said, loan forgiveness would be a good first start if we can recruit a teacher that knows if they teach for X number of years, their loan forgiveness, their loans would be forgiven, and that's a big deal. That's a good starting place. But that's we have a lot of work to do in that arena.
Yeah, well, I knew neither one of you were going to say that small business owner or realtors, that there were too many or not enough of those.
No,
but
no.
Never too much, never too many. Well, we really appreciate that. And I think our viewers will know, our Kids Count essay this year focused on what we call the kids sector workforce. We talked about in juvenile justice, in child welfare, in child care, in K-12. And part of what we talked about were those bright ideas, and representative two of those were student teacher stipends and loan forgiveness. So we really are very encouraged by what we heard from you on that. The other area that I think there is general agreement on, and it certainly is a legacy of the late Representative Carney and a compliment to Senator Wise, was the school safety and resiliency bill. I noticed, Representative, that on a Facebook posting, you talked about the need for continued support for mental health with kids and schools, building resilience. as an old broken down educator, I always contend that if we don't deal with that issue, we're not going to get to reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so, again, that seems to be an arena that has broad support. I'm wondering if you might just offer some observations, thoughts as to where you see those kind of supports heading.
Well, thank you for that question. It's a very important issue. This past summer over the interim, we actually had a task force to review the School Safety and Resiliency Act that passed in 2019. You mentioned my friend Representative Carney and Senator Wise worked diligently on that legislation. We looked.
And it was a national model, which is such a compliment. Yes.
States across the country have been modeling after that. And so I think one of the arenas we talked about was mental health. One of the presentations that we had was a presentation from some of our mental health experts in the state, and they made some recommendations as far as trauma-informed care. And actually, those recommendations are in House Bill 36. Representative Lisa Wilner has filed that bill. So that legislation is out there. I do know that in our House budget, along with school safety, there's additional funds for SROs for the school districts that do not have any SROs, trying to help fund that. Interesting enough, one other area that I've looked at, I anticipate legislation coming very soon, is since the advent of the smartphone, we have seen changes in our society, particularly with increased issues of mental health in our young people. And there is legislation being worked on as far as the ability to use cell phones during the school day. That is one issue that's being discussed. Other states have passed legislation dealing with social media accounts that someone has to be a certain age before they can sign up for those accounts, age verification. I'm actually looking at what some other states are doing. There have been some court challenges to those, so I'm looking at that as well. But those are some of the issues that are being discussed right now.
Yeah. Senator, what about it from your side?
You mentioned something about work opportunities for young folks, and schools I think are moving in that direction for workplace learning. I think that's really important for the younger high school students, and then we get to junior and senior year for them to get those life skills that sometimes they're lacking from just I guess just everyday things like learning that if you have a job that you have to show up, you have to be on time, and you have a job, you have to learn that it's not like being in school. We hear kids telling teachers to shut up. We hear them telling their parents to shut up. A little different in the work environment, and that's a good learning point for young people. And I think that's we see that more and more being developed in our public education. And I think that's a good step forward, especially for those kids that are at a very impressionable age.
Yeah. Representative, I was wondering, as someone who takes 2 7th graders to school a lot of mornings, I'm wondering if, would that legislation apply to my granddaughters in the car? Could we outlaw cell phones while you're going to school? Could you work on that?
We can always do amendments later if need be, Terry.
Okay, I would personally appreciate that. You could call that the Brooks Grandkid Amendment.
Okay.
So there is an area that seems like it's coming at us like a locomotive. And Representative Tipton, you actually have been to a couple events that we've sponsored that we addressed it, which is school choice. I am somebody that probably unique because I believe there are well-intentioned folks on both sides of that argument who really care about kids. So I don't believe that's an issue where if you're on this side, you're just the good guy. If you're on that side, you're the bad guy. I personally am confused as all get out because I understand arguments on both sides of that proposition. But I certainly want to give both of you time to talk about the school choice argument from your perspective, because I have a feeling that that's going to be one of the major initiatives around the constitutional amendment that come out of this session. So I'll kind of be quiet and let you all have the floor on that as a seminal issue.
Sure. It's obviously going to be, I think, one of the central areas of discussion. We have passed school choice legislation in the past. Now, we do have school choice in Kentucky. If a parent has the financial ability to send their children to a private school, they have school choice. But there are many parents who do not have that ability to do that. We've actually expanded school choice in our public schools where students can go from district to district now. So we have had some expansion of school choice, especially this was before COVID, but especially with COVID, I think we've seen an increase in the number of parents who are deciding to homeschool their children, are looking for different alternatives. And the bottom line is I say it all the time, I support education. That means we have to have a strong public education system, but I also support the rights of parents to make decisions they feel like are best for their children. And I think we're going to have a good conversation. As far as the constitutional amendment, there has been one bill filed. I know that there's still some discussion about the exact language that should be on the proposed amendment, but I suspect there will be some movement forward to put that on the ballot. And then it would be up to the citizens, the voters of Kentucky, to make a decision if we amend our constitution to make some changes. And this has come about because of some recent Supreme Court decisions have made this necessary if this move is going to go forward. So I do anticipate there'll be movement in that direction. And in November of 24, the voters of Kentucky will make the ultimate decision. After that decision's made, then it would be up to future General Assemblies to come back and decide what, if any, policies in that direction would move forward.
So the constitutional amendment, as you're predicting, will really be more of a green light, red light to really get into detail about what
it would be permissive. It would change language in the Constitution, I think, to address some court challenges we had that would enable members of the General Assembly, a future General Assembly, to make decisions about school choice.
Okay. And Senator, I assume that's a top shelf item for the Senate as well.
Absolutely. And Terry, it's really nice when you come on a program like this with you today that you, I was able to bring the chairman of the House Education Committee along with me, who has all the answers about education. He's on the cutting edge. Now, if you want to talk pensions and transportation, I would be the guy for that. But anyway, back to the school choice. The original school choice, the charter school bill goes back to Representative Bam Carney, passed that several years ago, and we worked with him to try to take away some of the rough edges, and of course the courts eventually ruled that was unconstitutional, and we never did truly fund the charter school bill. And so I think there's a lot of people that think that believe that school choice would only take those privileged students and send them to a private school. And I think that's far from being the truth. It would help a lot of low-income students, handicapped students. Representative Tipton and myself both have had the opportunity to visit other states and visit their charter schools. Kentucky is only the one of five or six states that don't have charter schools. I've been to California on several occasions to, I guess, tour their charter schools, and it's a frame of mind. It's just part of their education system. It's and it works out well. And a lot of the charter schools are kind of specialty schools. We toured one school and it didn't tell us to the end, but these students were great students. They went to class 2 days a week, and they had a job that they had to go to 3 days a week. And one of them was working with drones, and he was doing a lot of stuff with drones, including flying them. Another one worked with a a production crew, and as we went to these jobs, they were bragging on these students, what a great job they did. And on the last day, they told us that these students were alternative school students. They'd been kicked out of their school and came to this charter school for those individuals that were having trouble in their home school. And really were going to end up being dropouts, but they sent them this charter school. They found out what their talents and their likes were, and they honed that and really made got them on a path to be productive citizens. And I think that's a part that I saw that really impressed me, is that individual, that I guess taking that individual and find what it is that makes them click, and find what their talents are and what their I guess what they love to do.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. And I just want to say, and I want to say that to our listeners or our viewers, both of you could play such an important role in that. Representative Tipton, I think at the forum you attended, you heard us trying to build a case for some common sense, common ground. What I remember about that forum, candidly, is I heard some common ground ideas from some folks, and I heard other folks pretty locked in. I think a quote was, "There's no middle ground." I
I've heard that as well.
I hope we can find some middle ground, because again, I don't think this is a good guy, bad guy deal if we can keep doing it. And you both are very much statesmen when you bring folks together. So that's just sort of a public plea to you all to keep that going. I want to make sure we end, but we're not quite ready yet. I want to give you each a chance to talk about how to engage you and your colleagues. But before that, I want to know if there is a personal pet project or topic in education that you'd like to highlight. Again, Representative Tipton, I know you've spoken very articulately about some ideas on numericity. I want to make sure you have a chance to talk about that. You also have dropped a really important bill around maltreatment that we're totally behind. Senator, I want to give you plenty of airtime as well if you've got specific notions. So if one of you want to begin by talking about sort of those issues that move you deeply.
I'll jump in. For years, Terry, I've worked to try to improve technical education, and filed numerous bills and just to see them crash and burn, and things that I thought needed to be done to.
That's so important to have that technical education.
Well, it is, and finally, we're starting to see that the state and the House and the Senate have devoted a lot of funding to technical education. And we have two different types of technical education. We have our ATCs, Area Technology Centers, that some schools have, and then we have what they used to call LAVACs, which are locally controlled technical centers. And but the funding was really, not I guess equal at all. The ATCs were funded way up here, the LAVACs way down here. We've just about got those stabilized, where we've got the two together and start to standardize some of the things we do with them. And funding was a big part. Facilities, we've I think 2 budgets in a row, we put up $100 million for schools to build and I guess add on to or remodel their technology centers. So we've come a long way with that. There's some kids that really excel in that, and there's a lot of careers that come in the technical education space. Healthcare and just mechanics and just a lot of different skills that come from that. So I felt good about my contribution to that and the seeds that I sowed early on. Now, some others have picked that up and ran with it, and that's good. I'm glad to see that.
That's very much part of your legacy. And you talk about a way to connect kids who may not make it otherwise. Being able to connect that kid who may not see English as his or her jam to a technical career is just a great strategy. Representative, I don't want to bury the lead because I mentioned a couple things I know that's on your mind, but I'll give you the floor to highlight a couple things you might be working on.
Sure. Back in 2022 session, Senator West and I worked on and passed Senate Bill 9, which dealt with trying to improve early literacy in the state. The numeracy, the math education bill that I had filed this time is a follow-up to that. It's House Bill 162. And that's just a recognition of trying to strengthen our math education in Kentucky. I believe very strongly if students have a strong foundation in literacy, in math, we're going to see them succeed in so many other areas. So that bill has recently been filed. May possibly hear that in committee next week. You know, when you chair, you have a little bit of say about what bills get heard. But
Yeah.
the other bill that you mentioned, I filed that today, House Bill 275, dealing with teacher misconduct. It's one of those subjects we'd rather not have to address, but in reality, there are unfortunate situations where students go through situations with teachers and people in authority, and this legislation is trying to address that and trying to prevent those situations from happening in the future.
Yeah, and I just need to say to our viewers that last bill that Representative Tipton talked about is absolutely essential to protect kids in Kentucky. And he's shown a lot of guts, courage, and persistence to stay at that. So, Representative, I personally appreciate that. The final thing, I want to be respectful of your time, and as we wrap up, I want to ask you to respond to sort of a bigger picture question. Some of our viewers are very well experienced in Frankfort; they know their way around. Other viewers, frankly, are just dipping their toe in the water. And one of the things we hear from them, especially the newer folks, is who cares what my voice has to say? Does anybody really listen? I know both of you guys excel at constituent relations. You're so accessible to folks like us at KYA. Can you spend just a moment and frankly encourage our viewers to make their voice heard and let them know that indeed it does count? Senator, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, you know, Representative Tipton and I, pre-COVID, went to the classroom with the fifth graders every year to talk to them about our form of government. You know, we're not a democracy. We're a republic, and in a democracy, you know, we rule by polling, and the majority would always rule. But we have a republic where the voice of the minority is heard also, and we elect people to represent us. And that's what a republic does. And so, you know, getting to know your legislator or knowing their phone number and contacting them, you know, we want our constituents, we want their voice to be heard. And it's great. I would encourage anybody to try to know your state representative and state senator on a first name basis. Representative Tipton and I have, you know, countless constituents that we talk to regularly, but we have a lot of ways to contact us. Representative Tipton and I both, if a constituent contacts us, we'll respond to them. I'll let them know that I got their message. I won't get into any long you know, reply, because I simply don't have time. And if they
Sure.
want to follow up later, we can. But we have a message line that you know, you can make sure that your folks have that message line. They can call and leave us a message. In fact, they can make one phone call and get to both of us.
Okay, that's great.
One phone call, say, I want every senator and state representative to hear this message. They can email us, and that's, you know, that's another great way to communicate. We get hundreds of emails every day, and every once in a while we'll get a letter, and we'll respond to those also. But and we both have legislative coffees in our district that we listen to constituents and about what's important to them. And we have a lot of visitors come to the Capitol and to the annex to visit with us, and that's really important, is to let your voice be heard.
Representative, you want to add an amen to that?
Sure. And I'll make this statement. Don't wait till the legislature's getting ready to go in session. to start talking to your legislators, develop that relationship, make it a continuous relationship. Because a lot of time we get busy in session, but it's important to have that relationship with the community and reach out during the year. There is a website that anybody can go to. It's legislature.ky.gov. People can go there and find out how to contact us, email us. There's also links to bills that are being filed, committee meetings. Our committee meetings, our sessions are on KET. A lot of times they're taped. So you've got an opportunity to, even if you can't come to the Capitol, to see what's going on and talk to us. And we encourage correspondence, communication, and participation of our constituents.
Great. Thank you all both so much. To Senator Higdon and Representative Tipton both, after a long day in Frankfort, thanks for taking time to do that. I wish we could clone you, because there are folks up there who lead with their head, and there are folks up there who lead with their heart. There are very few who lead with their head and heart. Both of you do that. You do it so well. And Kentucky's kids are the winners because you're there. I just want you to know that. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for listening in. Hopefully you were able to take note of a few exciting things taking place in Frankfort. We had hoped to have a student reflecting today, but because of school schedules, we were unfortunately unable to get a youth present. Next year, we're going to explore some options to make sure we've got our students accommodated, but I am actually a former educator. I taught middle school. I'm a current school board member, and I have traveled all across the state and have visited over 100 schools, both public and private. So I'll offer just a few reflections to get us started, and then I'd love to hear from you all. Just some initial thoughts for me. I really want to first start by echoing Terry's sentiments about how lucky we are to have Senator Higdon and Representative Tipton. They truly do keep kids and families at the center of conversations and are always such wonderful partners when it comes to sharing information. So we're super, super lucky to have had them to be a part of this conversation and at the table. We heard from a variety of topics in that short 30 minutes, from the retention of teachers to mental health, to school choice, to some of the priorities that are taking place this session. And to me, it's no surprise that those were some of the main priorities considering the current landscape. Related to workforce, Senator Higdon, he shared that they're hearing from every industry about shortages. And in the education world, we commonly like to say that teaching is the profession that teaches all other professions. And I think about how important that is, that we invest in our teachers and we think about ways that we can further recruit and retain. And so I was especially excited to hear about the potential for stipends for our practicum students that are going through those traditional routes, as well as the loan forgiveness program that was that those items were both proposed in the House budget. So some great opportunities. Hopefully we will see those in the final budget, but we need your advocacy to make it happen. Tipton also talked a little bit about the House Bill 36, which is all about school safety and mental health. And this bill is a comprehensive look at student resiliency and well-being, and it includes some really incredible components. So I encourage you to take a look at that bill. It is just really incredible how it would help not only with well-being plans, but really putting kids and their mental health at the center of the conversation. We know how important that is before students can have that academic success that we hope. Tipton also talked about the additional funding for our SROs. That's important because we know in previous sessions that has been an unfunded mandate. So I was optimistic to hear that they're going to put some money where their mouth is in that regard, or they proposed it. And Senator Higdon talked a little bit about those durable skills related to our technical schooling, which is so important. School choice, it's no surprise that that is a topic that is on the table. I'll be interested to see how that comes about and how that is shaped this session. If you're interested in learning more about school choice, KYA recently released a blog to break that down for folks to hopefully find a little bit more coolness and clarity around the topic. And then I was personally compelled by some of the personal areas that they talked about. I know Representative Tipton is very passionate about those foundational skills of math and reading. And House Bill 162, which is the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act, is going to really elevate math. So I'm excited to hear more. There was some discussion this past Tuesday in the House Ed Committee, very robust conversation from a lot of different partners at the table. Kentucky Center for Mathematics, Advanced Kentucky, a lot of folks in support of this work. Also, I know at KYA, we're tickled to see House Bill 275, which is all about creating safer environments in school. That did pass favorable out of committee this past Tuesday. So we're elated to see some movement on that bill. And just some of my final thoughts as we look forward. I'm eager to see what happens this session, and I'm hopeful that we'll keep families and kids at the center of our conversations, as well as hear from the people that are impacted on the day-to-day with some of the bills that are being introduced. So hopefully you were able to resonate with some of those thoughts or reflections, or maybe they were further able to elaborate on a topic that sparked your interest. But I would really like to just open up this Zoom to hear from you all and hear about your thoughts. If anything gave you hope based on what you learned, or what kind of action do you see yourself taking place in the upcoming weeks? And feel free to drop those reflections or questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer or speak to those. Another thing that I'll just elevate in the time that we have here is the importance of getting involved in making your voice heard. Senator and Representative, they both spoke about a few items on how you can be an advocate and further your advocacy, and getting to know your legislators, making your desires known. If there's a bill or something that you think is really good for kids and families, write a letter, send an email, pick up the phone and give someone a call. We would be happy to also help you write those advocacy notes and make sure that your voice is heard. The LRC website can be a mystery at first, but when you take time to get to know and explore it more, it really will help you navigate the different bills, get to know your legislators, as well as track movement. And then, of course, committee meetings. Those are available on YouTube. You can go on the Kentucky LRC, their channel, and they have all of those meetings available to watch. And you can also go in person. And if a bill is being heard, there's an opportunity to testify at most of the meetings. So I encourage you all, if you feel compelled and there is a bill or an area that speaks to you or makes your heart sing, I encourage you to get involved. All right. Well, seeing no questions or further reflections, I just want to thank you all for tuning in to this conversation. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Thanks for being here during Children's Advocacy Week. We will have many of our virtual events that have taken place this week available for your viewing at a later time. Be sure to tune in tomorrow at 12 for our closing celebration of Kentucky's kids. And I just want to wish you all a very happy Children's Advocacy Week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up.